Hello everyone, welcome to this week's catch-up video. This one is about how teachers can engage their parents a little bit more. So this time of year is very common for schools to have parents' evening, and if you're doing parents' evening for the first time, then you would have given your parents a login, and the idea is for your parents to continue to log in even after your parents' evening is finished. So last week's video was all about how admins can increase parental engagement, but you as a teacher can increase parental engagement as well. So I'm going to show you a few things which you're probably already aware of, but you may not be aware that the parent, when they log in, can see some of the things that you're putting on your area of the platform. So once you know that, you can use that to your advantage a little bit and help out your administration staff as well by keeping your parents up to date with what's going on in the classroom and remind them of other things that may be forthcoming. So to go through some of the things that your parents can see is we'll start with classes. So firstly, your classes your class page is for you to change however you want to. As we say to most of our teachers, just be aware that your class page is more like a notice board rather than a log of what's going on in the year. You're better to keep this nice and clear, nice and concise. So if you are going to be putting bits and pieces on there, the key is to change it regularly, and how regular that is entirely up to you. So some schools do this on a weekly basis, some do it on a fortnightly basis, some do it on a daily basis, which may be a little bit too much for some schools, but I would definitely find a happy medium for all of your teachers and say, you know, this, we're going to change it every, let's say every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it might be. And then your items that you have on here, whether that be video, whether that be downloadable items or pictures, I wouldn't put too much on there, because if you put too much on there, you'll find that when you go to your setup, you are moving things around, or you're scrolling right down to the bottom for the new thing. And if you've got lots on there, then you're adding your item at the top, and then you're scrolling all the way down. And actually, your students and subsequently your parents are not going to see any of that new stuff on there. They're probably not going to be inclined to scroll all the way down to see the new bits and pieces. So imagine it to be like a notice board, and you're going to put a few things on there, but you are going to change them regularly. Now with parents, they do see what you're putting onto your class page. So if you wanted to put reminders on there for your parents to send their child in with a particular piece of equipment. Let's say it's Forest School, so please bring Wellington boots in for a particular day next week, or there is a school trip coming up and some parents haven't paid the required amount of money. You can put reminders and things on there for your parents. It's just something else that if the parent knows that there is some new information on there, they're more likely to log on a regular basis. And certainly if you've decided that it's going to be every week or every 2 weeks, then they then know to go into the platform every Monday, let's say, and there is some new information on there. Now, another thing that parents can see is groups. So if you are doing groups, if you've got your sports teams, your after-school clubs, your lunchtime clubs on there, you can create these groups in exactly the same way, and they can see what's going on that group page. It's worth saying, just in groups and classes, they don't see some of this other information here, like the group list, the discussions, but they do see what's going on the page, on the opening blank canvas that you have put pictures, videos, text boxes, etc. on. So again, if you wanted to create some reminders, information, things that they need to download, let's say you're a parent and you know there's a trip going to happen in a couple of weeks' time, but you've mislaid that letter or whatever it might be. Then if you've got a PDF of it, then you can pop it on to either the class page, or if it's a particular group, then you can create a group page. Let's say it's a residential. This works really well for residentials actually. So if you've got all of your students going on a residential and you want to keep your parents informed about it the whole time, then just use groups. Create a group called 2019 residential, and you can put all of your pictures, all of your diary entries into the one thing, and your parents can just go on there. You're not having to put it on the website, so it can be seen by absolutely everybody. This is a closed platform, so your parents will only see the things that you want them to see, and you're not sharing that with the wider world. So I mean, some other schools, they might set up something like a Facebook page or a Twitter page, and rather than go through all of that additional rigmarole, and then at the end of the residential, then you've got to bin it off anyway. So you may as well use something that you've already got and encourage your parents to continue to log in all of the time. So I would definitely suggest using something like Groups for a residential, because you can put all of that information on there. Now, the other thing your parents see is homework. So not only do they see homework that's been that is live, they can also see older homeworks that their child has completed. So within there, they can also see scores and things. So if you want to set a score for something, you can see their marks improving. Or worst case scenario, you can see their marks taking a bit of a dip. But either way, you are armed with that knowledge, so you can see how your child is progressing through homework. Again, it's better coming from the school, so you say we are going to put a certain number of homeworks onto the eSchools platform per term. And again, if you're doing that on a regular basis, then parents know to go into eSchools to check those homeworks as they're coming through. It's just one of those additional things that just encourages your parents to log in on a regular basis. As I mentioned last week, your parents will probably be going to certain websites on a regular basis anyway, so it's a case of just adding another one into their routine. If they know they go in there every Monday to see something new, then it becomes a routine for them, and they can go in there and see that new information that you're putting on all of the time. So what I will do now is I'm just going to log out of here and log in as a parent. Just so that you can see some of those bits and pieces from a parent's point of view. So initially they see attendance. So this is quite handy, although this is not live attendance. It's worth bearing in mind that it just takes a snapshot of what's going on within your MIS certain times throughout the day. So it's not live, but it will give the parents an idea of how well their child has been attending. They can see classes. So if we go across to classes, you can see the page. You'll notice that the tabs across the top, that there's no tabs there, so they can't see the class list. They can't see any discussions that you may be having, but they can see what you have decided as a teacher goes on to that class page. So again, if you want to put things like reminders, notifications on there, this is a great place to see it, because your students will see it, yes, but more importantly, your parents are going to see it as well. Homework is there too, so you can see all of the homework that is due, and you can see in this case a lot of homework is overdue, but you can also see homework handed in. You can click on any one of these things to see a little bit more information about it. So if you need to give that student a helping hand as a parent, then you can have a look on there and do that. Depending on the homework itself, you may have given them some feedback. So if there is some feedback in there, then you can see that sort of thing as a parent. And as we go across to groups, you can see that the parent again can see the group page. They don't see any of the other tabs that are in there. teachers can use messages, and you can use messages to go to your parents. You can set it up as one-way traffic if you want to, but parents can use messages to send messages back to you. So what Messages does is it's an internal messaging system. So you can set this up for your teachers, and a lot of schools do tend to set this up as colleague-to-colleague messaging. So the recipient would need to be logged into eSchools, or they've downloaded the eSchools app to see this particular message. But not a lot of schools turn messages on for parents. I believe the worry is that the parent may try to contact a teacher at a time when a teacher is definitely not going to be checking their eSchools platform. So messages are going to be going at, say, 8 o'clock at night, so the teacher doesn't see it, and it's not seen until the next day. I think as long as you set some ground rules down for your parents, messages can be a really handy tool. Teachers will find that they can send it one way, they can do one-way messaging. So if you don't want to have parents responding to your message, then you don't have to. You can set it up to go as broadcast only, and that will just go to your parents, and your parents will only be able to read it, they won't be able to respond to it. But the schools that have turned messages on and allowed their parents to respond to teachers or send teachers a message directly have found that messages can be a really handy tool. Some schools have a system where if a parent needs to make contact with their teacher, then they either have to phone up, go through the administrator, or a book comes home with the student, and then they have to write a message in the book which then goes through to their teacher. So rather than the teacher having to look through a load of notes either coming from the administrator or a load of books coming from the student, then they can see everything all in one place through messages. Now, you know your parents a lot better than I do, and yes, of course, that particular method of communication is open to misuse, I suppose. But if you set your ground rules down with your parents to say, look, nobody's going to be looking at messages after, let's say, 5:30 p.m., and messages will be responded to within the week, but not necessarily immediately, then you've got a sort of framework for your parents to abide by, and they can use messages in that way. Remember, again, this is a closed platform, so it's not going to be going out to anybody else. It's only going to be going directly to that particular teacher. So have a think about messages. It might be something that works well with your parents. I mean, it's always something that you can turn off. So if you find that it is falling into misuse and you want to turn it off, or you want to use the broadcast only tool, and let me just show you what that looks like. If we log out of here and go back in as a teacher, and go to messages and go to new messages, you'll see that there's a little button, a little switch down at the bottom that you can set this to be broadcast only. So that will only go to your parents and they won't be able to respond to it. So that's a really handy little function if you want to do broadcast style messages. You don't want to put a message on your class page or your group page, but you do want it to go to your parents. That is really quite handy. Remember, messages can be seen on the eSchools app, whereas things within your classes and your groups, they're currently only available on the platform when you go in. So that's another way around you could use messages. So there's a few ways there that you can engage your parents. Just remember things like classes and groups. They're not just seen by your students, they can be seen by your parents as well. So once you know that, those are some really good platforms and avenues that you can use to your advantage to remind parents to do things or to give them prior warning about something that is on the horizon. Now finally, don't forget calendar, because the calendar is an internal calendar, but you can set things to go to a class. So if you are setting things to go to your class as a teacher, these will be seen by your parents when they log in. And your parent now doesn't have to go to the website, they can go direct to their platform and see only the things that apply to them. So if we set this to be monthly, and we put in the name of a class just up here. Let's say it's Maple class. Select Maple. It doesn't have to be a class, could be your group as well. Put your title in, start date, end date, start time, end time, all of that sort of thing just in there. Once you've clicked on finish, it adds that particular event to your calendar, but also to the calendar of your parents as well. So rather than your parents having to go to the school website, they would then have to scroll through all of the other different events that are going on for other classes in the year. Let's say this parent only has one child and that child is in the Maple class. They don't care about the other classes, what's going on in Beach class, what's going on in Hazel class. Just want to see the Maple stuff. So if you put it on the internal calendar, then that particular parent will only see the things that you put in. So using calendar is a great way of focusing your parents. It shows them all of the events that they need to know about, and the other things, they don't matter so much. That could really save your administrators some time. So instead of them having to put all of the different bits and pieces on your website calendar, which can be that calendar, the website calendar can be seen by absolutely everybody. So we have seen some instances where schools are putting far too much on their website calendar. It can be seen by absolutely everybody. Why not use the internal calendar? Because you can put all of the information about a particular event, where it's happening, time it starts, time it ends. You can put it all on your internal calendar, and that is safe. It'll only be seen by your parents. There's a few ways there that you can engage your parents as a teacher. Hope that's been useful to you, and I'll speak to you again soon.